Now, the next thing I want to show you is how you can do a range name and use a range name in the formula as well. These come up quite a bit. So I'm going to go ahead and click on that 8%. Now, you can either pick one cell or you can highlight multiple cells. First of all, let me zoom out for a second. So I clicked on that one cell. Now follow my mouse and I'm going to click on the name bar up here. And now I can zoom back in. And over there, you type in whatever name that you wanted to, except the name doesn't like spaces for whatever reason. So I'm going to call that tax rate with no spaces. Now you could use an underscore there instead of, but just don't use a space. You could use an underscore if you wanted to. So now I'll hit the enter key. So now that cell that we were on, cell M2, now has the name of tax rate. So we can use that in the formula. So I'm just going to have another sales tax column here. And watch how we'll use that name. We're going to start the formula with the equal sign, of course. And I'll click on the row total for that row, which is J4. And I'll say times tax rate. Now notice when you start to type it in, it'll show up in this list. So you can either type it in or you can double click that. And it knows what that tax rate refers to. It, as you can see, it's pointing to that 8%. So I showed you how to name a cell, and then I showed you how to use that cell in a formula. Notice how it says J4 times the tax rate. Now, one benefit of using that is it might be easier to remember the name of the cell than it is to remember the cell reference, especially if that cell is way off to the side somewhere. Another benefit is when I copy that down, I'm just going to get the black cross and drag it down. Each one of those says the word tax rate in that part of the formula, as you can see. So it's like using an absolute reference without having to use the dollar signs. So that was a nice way to do that. So I showed you how to use, how to name a cell using the name box. That also could have been more than one cell, by the way. Then I showed you how to use the name in a formula. And then once you have that, if you copy it down to the rest of the column, the rest of those will use that same name. So it's like using an absolute reference without the dollar signs. Many people use those range names. Now, if I'm in a formula, and maybe this is the first time I'm looking at this, I want to know what the word tax rate refers to. So here's what you would do from there. You're going to go back to the name box over here on the right, over here on the left, and I want to click on that pull down, and then the range names would show up right there. I'm going to pick on the word tax rate, and then you see it points to the cell that the tax rate is naming. So if you ever see these formulas like that, and you're like, okay, well, what does tax rate mean? You go back to the name box, and then when you click on that, I'm going to zoom out for a second so we can see the bigger picture. I'm going to go ahead and zoom out. So I'm going to click on the pull down for the name box. I'll pick on tax rate, and then you can see how it points to that cell. Now, when you have a lot of range names, let me show you where we're going to go. We'll pick on the Formulas menu, and then under Formulas, I'm going to come over here and pick on the Name Manager. And then you can see that would be a list of names that would be associated with that website, with the page, I mean. And then you can list them, you can make a new one, you can change them, or you can delete them. So when you have a lot of range names, you might want to use the Name Manager. The way you get to that is you pick on the Formulas menu, and then you come over here and you pick on Name Manager. Now let me show you another way to associate the names. We can use the names that are on the left side of the screen or in the top row. So I'm going to highlight from the word January all the way over to I-9. And notice how the first row that I have highlighted is in fact the column headings. We can use those as range names by doing the following. I'm going to pick on the Formulas menu. Then I'm going to come over here and I'll say Create from Selection. It means create from the selected data. So clearly my names are on the top row, and I've seen them before in the left column. Now, I don't remember seeing the names too much in the bottom row or in the right column, but I'm sure that can happen. So I want to pick on top row. My names are in the top row. Let's see what happens when I click on OK. Now, if I click on that name box, now all of those names are there. Or if I pick on the Formulas menu in the Name Manager, Now all of those range names are there. So let me show you how you would use those. If I come over here, I can say equals sum, just type in the word January, and it'll know what that is because I just gave it a name. All right, so I showed you how to name your cells with the name box. I also showed you how to name the cells by selecting them. I'm going to say create from selection. I showed you how to use the names in the formulas, and then you can use the name box to go back to those names. If I pick on the word tax rate, notice how once again it points to cell M2. And then there's also the name manager. Those range names do come up quite a bit. I wanted to talk about that. Now, I want to show you how to link your sheets together. By the way, I'm going to get rid of this formula right here. I'm just going to click on it and then delete that. That was just an example. So notice how I have sheet 2014, and down here I have sheet 2015. Well, on the 2015 sheet, I would like to see the totals for 2014. Let me show you two ways to link your sheets together. So that means if I change 2014, 2015 will also change at the same time. So now I'm back to sheet 2014, and I'm going to highlight all of these numbers, and I'll just do a normal copy. So there's numerous ways to do a copy, of course. I'm going to highlight those cells, and we'll do a copy. And in this case, I'll pick on copy. Now I'm going to go over to sheet 2015, and right on this cell, I'll right click, and we'll do what we call a paste special. Now I'm going to click on the word paste special. These icons do the same kind of thing as the next screen that we're going to see, but I'm just used to this screen. So I'm going to pick on the word paste special, and then over here you have a choice. It's called paste link. I'll pick on paste link, and notice how we have the same numbers from sheet 2014. But more importantly, look at the formula. It says 2014 exclamation point C11. Let's zoom in on that. It says that's the sheet name 2014. The exclamation point separates the sheet name from the cell. So that really means if cell C11 changes on sheet 2014, then this will change as well. They're linked together because we did a copy from one sheet, then we came over here and we said paste special and then paste link. So let's go back to sheet 2014. Right now, as you can see, it says 124,000. Now, if you have those blinking cells like I do, I'm going to go ahead and hit the escape key and put those away. Now, I'm going to change one of these numbers. I'm going to change that to say 25,000. And notice how the bottom total changed. I'll change that number to say 24,000. And now the bottom number says 138,000. And now if I go over to sheet 2015, notice how it changed there as well. So one way to link your sheets together is to do a copy from one sheet, and you go to the other sheet and you say paste special and then paste link. By the way, that'll work between two different workbooks. I can copy from one workbook, go to a completely different file and say paste special and then paste link. So if I change the one workbook, the second one will change, even if the second one isn't even open. The next time you open it up, it'll have the newest results because we said paste special and then paste link. By the way, I see that that cell has the pound signs. Of course, I'm just going to make that column bigger. So I'll go up to that between those two columns, get the black cross, and double click. A lot of times when I see that, I try to fix it right away because otherwise I'll forget about it, quite frankly. All right, so I showed you how to link your sheets together. That was one way. Here's another way. Now I'm going to start the formula on sheet 2015, and as I'm building the formula, I'm going to point to a cell on sheet 2014. So I'm going to type in the equal sign. Notice how I'm on sheet 2015. As I'm building the formula, I'll go to my other sheet, 2014, and I'll pick on the grand total, which is right here. Now I can keep on doing more math for that as much as you wanted to, but that is really using that cell on the other sheet. Notice how the formula is building over here. So if I hit the enter key right now, it's going to go back to sheet 2015, which is where I started the formula. And you can see it has the grand total from sheet 2014. So what I did there was I started the formula with the equal sign on sheet 2015. Then as I was building my formula, I clicked on the cells on the other sheet. So that's another way to link your sheets together. You can either copy and paste special and then paste link, or you can start the formula on one sheet, and as you're building your formula, you click on cells on another sheet. And those are great ways to link your sheets together. I like to talk about with these spreadsheets and the formulas. If I go back to sheet 2014, notice how it says January, February, March going across there. Well, I'm sure when I originally built that, here's what I did. I'm going to delete those for a second. I'm going to click on the word January and get the black cross in the corner and then just drag it over. And we call that the speed fill. And notice how it works with the month names very nicely. Watch again. I'm going to undo that. I'm going to pick on the word January. We'll get the black cross in the corner. That's called the speed fill or the auto fill. And then we'll just drag it over to the right. Let me show you other examples of when that can be very helpful. I'm going to go to sheet 5 here. Now you can also drag it down. So notice here I have the month names going down. That was the same exact thing. Here I used Monday. I got the black cross and dragged it down, and then we have the rest of the dates. I can do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Let me show you how you do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I'm going to actually get rid of those entries and show you that one again. I'm going to click on the 1. I'm going to get the black cross, drag it down. Now notice how it says all ones, right? So what you do is you're going to click on this little box at the bottom of your speed fill. And then you pick on one that's called Fill Series. And then it says 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay? So that's a nice one to know about. Watch again. I'm going to start with the 1, get the black cross, and drag it down. Then I'll click on this box over here, and I'll say Fill Series. And now it says 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It can also work with the dates. I want to give you a keyboard shortcut right now. If I do Control semicolon will give us today's date, and that is the date that I'm recording it, June 5th of 2016, if you're watching this. So I'm going to go ahead and get the date and drag it, get the black cross and drag it down, and now you can see it's filled in the rest of the dates. Now here's something interesting we can do with the dates. Perhaps I would like to do the weekends only. As a matter of fact, when I'm recording this, it is a weekend, so the 5th is a Sunday and the 6th is a Monday. So what if I just wanted to do the the weekdays only? I'm going to click on this little box, and then we'll say Fill Weekdays. And if you notice, it actually removed the Saturdays and Sundays. So let's try that again. And I'll pick on that, and I'll pay Fill Weekdays. And then you can see how it only shows the weekends only. So when you do that, you're going to click on the pull down and you pick on Fill Weekdays. And notice how it then shows only the weekdays only. So it goes from like the 10th to the 13th and the 17th to the 20th and so on. So that's a nice one to know about. Now you can also do something like this. If I typed in Team 1, then I'm going to go ahead and get the black cross, drag it down, and it fills those in. That could have been any word. I could have said patient 1 or student 1 or anything like that. And then we would be able to fill that series in. One more I want to show you here. If I want to get every Friday. So let's go with this Friday's date, which is going to be the 10th. So I'll say 6/10/2016. Then I'll type in next Friday's date, which will be the 17th, 6/17/2016. You're going to type in the first 2 of your series. I'm going to highlight both of those cells with the white cross. Then we'll get the black cross in the corner and just drag it down. And now I have every Friday after that. So when you want something that's different than sequential, you type in the first 2 of your series. You highlight both cells, you get the black cross, and then you drag it down. Usually it's smart enough to figure out what you're trying to do. Let's see another example of that. I'd like to say 5, 10, 15, 20. So I'll type in 5 and then 10. Highlight both cells with the white cross. We'll get the black cross, drag it down, and now we have 5, 10, 15, 20. So that's how on sheet 2014, that's how I originally built, where it says January through July. Now, to wrap up this video, I'd like to show you an example that comes up quite a bit. We're going to do something that's called the percent of change. So in this case, I'm going to go to a different sheet. Let's go to sheet 6. And you can see how I have the 2015 totals and the 2016 totals. And now down here, if I wanted to get rid of those totals, I can just get rid of those by deleting them. Now there, I would just do an Autosum. So I'll pick on the home menu, and I'll pick on Autosum right there. And you can see that's going to sum up that column. Now in this case, I don't want to include 2015, so I'm glad I saw that. I actually want to go from C3 to C9. So if the Autosum gives you a different range than what you want to use, then you can just highlight your own range before you hit the Enter key. Good. So now at this point, I just copied over with the speed fill, and now I have the column for the column total for both of those as well. Now let's see how we can get the difference and then the percent of difference. The difference is just going to be equals this number, D3, minus C3, equals D3 minus C3. And then we'll have the difference there. Now, of course, I'm going to go ahead and get the black cross and drag it right on down. Now, there's even a negative number. You can tell it's a negative number because negative numbers will show up in red or in parentheses. And you can see we have a negative number there. And that makes sense. 2014 had a total of 14,000 and 2016 had a total of 12,000. So actually it went down by 2,000. So all I did there was I said equals D3 minus C3. Now to get the percent of change, we're going to take this number and divide it by the first total. Some people will divide it by the second total, but that's not really correct. To get the percent of change, I want to take the difference and divide it by the first number. So I'm going to say equals this number divided by the original total. E3 divided by C3. And now I have that column already formatted as a percent. So if you do that and it's formatted like a decimal, then you would just change that to be formatted as a percent. And now I'm just going to copy that down. And now we have the percent of change for each one. And obviously that one has a negative change. Now notice how both of these numbers are the same in the accounting department. So their difference was 0 and the percent of change was 0. So to calculate the percent of change, first of all, we had to get the difference. So I took, if you notice the formula says D3 minus C3. And then once I had that, I took the difference and divided it by C3. So it says equals E3 divided by C3. So that's a real life example that's called a percent of change.